You were born into a family that controls more wealth than most countries will ever see in their entire existence. Not wealthy family wealthy. We're talking about a dynasty sitting on top of an estimated $1.4 trillion, built on oil reserves that still supply roughly 10% of the world's daily output, backed by a military you command, land you own, and laws that exist partly to protect your position. Most people hear that and picture luxury, private jets, palaces, servants who anticipate your needs before you voice them. And yeah, all of that is real, but that's not actually the interesting question. The interesting question is what it feels like to live inside a structure that total, that old, and that unforgiving. Because the wealth isn't just something you have, it's something you're inside of. Level 1, the dynasty. Here's the first thing most people get wrong about the Saudi royal family. They picture a king at the top and maybe a handful of princes below him, all swimming in oil money together. The actual structure is nothing like that. The Al Saud family has roughly 15,000 members who carry the title of prince. 15,000. And your position in that family, specifically how close your bloodline runs to the founding king, Ibn Saud, determines almost everything about what your life looks like. Most of those 15,000 get a monthly stipend from the state, a royal title they can put on a business card, and a very clear sense of the lane they're expected to stay in. They're princes in name. In practice, they're recipients of an allowance with a dress code. The real power sits with a much smaller group, sons and grandsons of Ibn Saud who hold the ministries that actually run the country. Defense, interior, oil, foreign affairs. These aren't ceremonial posts. They're the control points for a country that exports more crude oil than almost anyone else on earth, runs one of the largest sovereign wealth funds in the world, and controls Saudi Aramco, a company so dominant in global energy that its 2019 IPO briefly made it the most valuable publicly traded company in history. Aramco isn't just a business, it's the financial engine the entire Saudi state runs on. Oil revenues fund the government, the military, the social contracts that keep the population stable, and the stipends that flow to all 15,000 of those princes. Control Aramco's direction, and you control everything downstream from it. So when you think about what it means to be a Saudi prince, you have to ask which kind. Because the gap between a prince who runs the Ministry of Defense and a prince who gets a monthly government transfer and occasional access to the right events isn't a small gap. It's practically a different species of life. The title is the same. The reality is completely different. But even if you're in that inner circle, even if you're one of the princes who actually holds power rather than just a title, the life still doesn't look the way most people picture it. Level 2, the reality. Start with the physical reality, because it is as extreme as you'd expect. Princes in the inner circle don't have a home, they have properties. A palace in Riyadh is standard. Most have additional residences along the coasts, in Europe, in the United States. These aren't apartments or nice houses. They're compounds with staff, security, private entrances, and guest wings that could house a small office building's worth of people. When a senior prince travels, the advanced team moves first, sometimes days ahead. Security sweeps the route, blocks entire floors at whatever hotel is nearby, coordinates with local government and sometimes foreign intelligence services. Private terminals get reserved. Motorcade routes get mapped and cleared. A quiet weekend in London means 15 or 20 people traveled ahead of you, arrange things you'll never think about, and will be there waiting when you land. The whole apparatus runs on the assumption that your time costs more than their logistics do. Education almost always goes abroad. UK boarding schools are common, followed by US universities, sometimes both. You're sent somewhere with different rules, different social norms, a completely different relationship between what people say in public and what they actually do in private. You spend years living that way, and then you come back to a country where those two worlds are not allowed to touch. Because inside Saudi Arabia, the royal image is managed obsessively. What the family does publicly, what it says, how it presents itself religiously and politically, all of it runs through a filter. Alcohol, parties, certain relationships, the things that happen on trips to Europe or in private compounds back home, those exist in a completely separate reality from the face the family shows the country. You learn to hold both of those realities at the same time, and you learn early that confusing them has consequences. Then 2017 happened, and the rules of the game shifted in a way nobody who lived through it has forgotten. In November of that year, Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, ordered the detention of hundreds of princes, ministers, and major businessmen. They were held at the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh, not arrested in any formal legal sense, detained. The official framing was anti-corruption. The actual function was a consolidation of power on a scale the family hadn't seen in decades. People walked out of that hotel having signed over billions in assets. Some estimates put the total recovered at over $100 billion. A few simply disappeared from public life and never fully re-emerged. What that event did, more than anything, was clarify something that some princes had maybe let themselves forget. No title insulates you. No bloodline guarantees your safety if the man above you decides you're a problem. Loyalty to the crown was always expected. After 2017, it became something closer to a survival requirement. Princes who had drifted toward independent power bases, who had their own networks, their own money flows outside the approved channels, found out very quickly that independence and safety don't coexist in that structure. You are protected by the family. You are also always subject to it. Level 3. The weight. None of that is the hardest part. The hardest part is something that doesn't show up in any profile of the family, any documentary, any interview a prince has ever given to a Western outlet. It's the interior experience of a life you didn't choose and can't leave. You didn't earn this. You were born into it, and everyone around you knows that, including you. So every relationship you have carries a question underneath it that never fully goes away. The staff who anticipate your needs, the friends who orbit your circle, the business partners who want access to your name. You can never fully separate who's there for you from who's there for what you represent. Most people never have to think about that. You think about it constantly, even if you'd never say so out loud. Ambition gets strange inside a structure like this. In most environments, if you want more, you work harder, build something, push further. Here, the ceiling isn't set by what you do. It's set by when you were born and who your father was. A prince further down the bloodline chain can be smarter, more capable, more driven than anyone in the inner circle. And it doesn't move the needle. The hierarchy doesn't reward performance the way the outside world does. So ambition either gets redirected into approved channels, working within the system, proving loyalty upward, or it curdles into something quieter and more corrosive. Then there's the surveillance. This isn't paranoia, it's documented. Communications monitored, movements tracked, loyalty tested through a network of people whose job is to report back. You're not just watched by security protecting you from outside threats. You're watched by the structure protecting itself from internal ones. The 2017 purge didn't come out of nowhere. It was possible precisely because the family already had enough information on everyone inside it to know exactly who to pick up. Leaving isn't a realistic option. A few princes have tried. Some fled to Europe or North America, went quiet, hoped distance would mean safety. It usually didn't. Saudi Arabia has long reach and deep relationships with governments that value the economic partnership more than they value protecting a royal who stepped out of line. The ones who made it out cleanly are exceptions rare enough to prove the rule. So you sit inside a position that the rest of the world looks at as the pinnacle of everything: wealth, status, power, freedom, and the actual experience is a life bounded in ways that most people in middle-class apartments would find suffocating. You can buy almost anything. You can go almost anywhere. What you can't do is own your own future. That belongs to whoever holds the throne, and right now, that's a man who demonstrated in a single weekend in 2017 exactly how much weight a prince's title carries when the crown decides otherwise. Level 4. The trap. So what does all of that add up to? You're not free. That's the part that gets lost in the coverage, in the tabloid photos, in the lists of assets and properties and jet tail numbers. The dynasty is not a reward. It's a structure, and you were born inside it, which means it shapes every choice you make, every relationship you form, every ceiling you'll ever hit. Absolute wealth without autonomy is a specific kind of trap. It doesn't look like a trap from the outside, which is part of what makes it so complete. From the outside, it looks like the opposite of a trap. But the cage isn't made of anything you can point to. It's made of loyalty requirements and surveillance networks and the memory of a hotel in Riyadh, where men with titles older than most countries walked in free and came out having signed over everything they had. You were born into $1.4 trillion. You were also born into a system that decides what that means for you, what you're allowed to do with it, and what happens if you get that wrong. Most people will spend their whole lives wishing for more. You started with everything and still don't get to choose.